Marcus Chen stood in the cold auction hall of Kepler Station, watching his breath fog in the recycled air. The heating system had broken down 3 months ago, and nobody bothered to fix it anymore. This place was dying, just like everything else on the outer rim of known space. Around him, the auction hall was nearly empty. A few Qualthene merchants huddled in the corner, their blue skin shimmering under the flickering lights. Two sick traders clicked their mandibles together, communicating in their insect language. Nobody looked happy to be here. Marcus wasn't happy either, but he was desperate. His cargo hauler had finally died last week, leaving him stranded on this forgotten station with exactly 5,247 credits to his name. Not enough to book passage home to Earth. Not enough to buy a decent ship. Barely enough to eat for another month. The auctioneer, a blob-like Grecian named Volum, oozed onto the platform. His translator device crackled to life. Lot 47, Volum announced, his voice thick with mucus. Vexare Royal Cruiser, Bay 47, salvage rights only. No guarantees, no refunds. Every species in known space had tried to reverse engineer their technology, but most of it was too complex to understand. Starting bid, 5,000 credits, Volum said. The auction hall went silent. Nobody moved. The Qualthene merchants whispered among themselves and shook their heads. One of the sick traders made a chittering sound that Marcus's translator rendered as cursed junk. Crews who salvaged them went missing. Strange things happened around their technology. Some people said the Vexara hadn't vanished at all. They were just waiting, watching, ready to punish anyone who touched their things. But Marcus was out of options. And 5,000 credits. That was nothing for a ship that size, even if it was just scrap metal. 5,000, Marcus called out, his voice echoing in the empty hall. Every head turned to look at him. The Qualthene merchants made a gesture that Marcus recognized as their version of a prayer for the dead. One of the sick traders laughed, a horrible clicking sound. Volum's eye stalks focused on Marcus. The human bids 5,000. Any other bidders? Going twice. Sold to the human for 5,000 credits plus docking fees. He approached the platform and transferred his credits to Volum's account. The Grecian handed him a data chip containing the access codes and bay location. Word of advice, human, Volum said, his translator making his voice sound almost sympathetic. Don't stay aboard after dark cycle. The previous salvage team. They stopped reporting after the first night. No signs of struggle, just empty. The corridor lights barely worked, leaving long stretches of darkness between pools of dim yellow light. Marcus found the bay door and pressed his palm against the scanner. The data chip uploaded the access codes automatically. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a groan of ancient machinery, the massive door began to slide open. What Marcus saw took his breath away. The Vexare cruiser was enormous. It filled the entire bay, easily 3 times the size of any human vessel Marcus had ever seen. Its hull was a deep purple-black color that seemed to absorb light. Strange patterns covered its surface, not painted, but somehow part of the metal itself. They looked almost organic, like veins or tree roots spreading across the ship's skin. The ship's design was elegant in a way that human ships never were. Humans built ships that looked like flying boxes with engines strapped on. This looked like it had grown rather than been built, all flowing curves and natural lines. Marcus approached the boarding ramp. It extended from the ship's belly like a tongue, perfectly smooth despite 2 centuries of neglect. He stepped onto it carefully, half expecting it to collapse under his weight. It held firm. Inside, the ship was even more incredible. The corridors were tall and wide, designed for beings much larger than humans. The walls glowed with a faint bioluminescent light, pulsing softly like a heartbeat. Marcus realized the light was getting stronger as he walked deeper into the ship, as if it was waking up. Most of the systems appeared dead. Control panels were dark. Doors hung open, frozen in place. But the life support was working. Marcus could feel warm air flowing through the vents, and his portable scanner confirmed the atmosphere was breathable. He made his way to the bridge, following corridor signs written in the flowing SATA-III script. His translator couldn't read it, but the ship's layout was intuitive enough that he could navigate by logic. The bridge was a cathedral of technology. The ceiling stretched up 3 stories, covered in displays that flickered with dying light. Command stations ringed a central platform, each one built for the massive SATA-III form. In the center of it all stood a crystalline structure about the size of a human torso. It pulsed with faint blue light, brighter than anything else on the ship. Marcus approached it carefully. This had to be the data core, the brain of the ship. If any information about the SATA-III survived, it would be here. Marcus reached out and touched the crystal. The world exploded into light. Holographic displays erupted all around him, filling the air with text and images. But Marcus stumbled backward, shocked because he could read it. Not through his translator. The device was still silent on his belt. He could read it directly with his own eyes, because it was written in English, and Chinese, and Arabic, and Spanish, and dozens of other human languages, some he recognized and some he'd only seen in history books. "What the hell?" Marcus whispered. The displays shifted, reorganizing themselves. The text faded, replaced by a single holographic figure, a woman or something like a woman. She was tall and slender, with features that were almost human but not quite. Her skin shimmered with the same patterns that covered the ship's hull. "Welcome back, Inheritor," she said in perfect English, her voice warm and clear. "We've been waiting 50,000 years for you to come home." Inheritor, what was happening? "Who are you?" he managed to ask. "I am Remembrance," the holographic woman said. "I am the memory of this ship, the keeper of truths that the galaxy has forgotten. And you, Marcus Chen, are the first human to touch this vessel since the day your ancestors chose to forget everything. Wait. And now that you've activated this ship, that truth is going to change everything. Humans and SATA-III working side by side, not as master and slave, but as equals, as partners. 50,000 years ago, Remembrance said, humanity didn't live on Earth. You were explorers, builders, dreamers who helped found the greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known. You and the SATA-III together created the First Accord, an alliance that spanned half the known universe. If that were true, we'd remember. There'd be evidence. To save your species, to hide you from what was hunting advanced civilizations, the SATA-III and your own people made a choice. They sent humans to Earth, wiped their memories, made them start over as if they'd never left their home planet. And they left ships like this one, waiting in the dark, hoping that one day a human would find them and wake up the truth. It had to be some kind of malfunction, a damaged AI creating false stories, but deep inside something resonated. Something felt true about what she was saying. "Why me?" Marcus asked. "Why now?" "Your DNA responded to the ship's scanners. You're a descendant of the original spacefarers, one of the bloodlines we've been waiting for." Remembrance smiled, but it wasn't a happy expression. "Now, Marcus Chen, you have a choice to make. You can walk away, forget everything you've seen here, live the rest of your life as you planned. Or you can help me transfer these archives, unlock the coordinates to where your ancestors sleep, and change the galaxy forever." Her form flickered, and the displays around them shifted to show warning symbols in a dozen languages. "The moment you activated this ship, you triggered systems that have been dormant for 2 centuries. Right now, every scanner on this station is detecting a SATA-III energy signature. Within hours, you're going to have visitors. Some will want to buy this ship from you. Some will want to steal it. And some. Because if the truth gets out, if the galaxy learns what really happened to the SATA-III and the humans, it will shatter the foundations of every major civilization in known space." He'd spent his whole life scraping by, hauling cargo for people who barely saw him as human. He'd never done anything that mattered, never been part of something bigger than himself. Maybe that was about to change. "Show me," Marcus said. "Show me everything. Let's begin with why your blood is the key to unlocking coordinates that half the galaxy would kill to possess." She raised her hand, and the displays exploded into a star map so detailed and vast that Marcus felt dizzy looking at it. Marcus stared at the star map floating in the air around him. It showed the entire galaxy, but not as he'd ever seen it before. Thousands of routes connected star systems in a web of light. Trade routes, communication lines, patrol paths, all marked in languages he could somehow read. "This is the first accord at its height," Remembrance said, her holographic form gesturing at the map. 50,000 years ago, humans and Vexarii controlled nearly half the galaxy, not through conquest but through cooperation. "You built this together. If humans were so advanced, how did we end up back on Earth? How did we forget everything?" Wherever the darkness touched, civilizations went silent. Whole sectors just stopped communicating. "The silence," Remembrance said quietly. "We don't know what they are. Maybe they're machines. Maybe they're living beings from another dimension. Maybe they're something we don't have words for. But every 2 million years they come. They find civilizations that have grown too advanced, too loud, too visible, and they erase them. They kill them. Great civilizations rising, reaching a certain level of technology, and then disappearing overnight. They were studying strange artifacts, running simulations, building devices Marcus couldn't begin to understand. When the first accord discovered the pattern, they had a choice," Remembrance continued. "Fight the silence and probably lose, or hide and wait for the cycle to pass. They chose survival. They were different, but certain sequences matched perfectly. The Vexarii were extremely logical. Their entire civilization was built on mathematics and reason. But humans, you're different. You're creative in ways they could never be. You take risks they wouldn't dare. You adapt faster than any species they'd ever encountered. Together, you balanced each other perfectly. The silence tracks technological signatures," Remembrance explained. "Advanced power sources, quantum communications, dimensional manipulation. But primitive civilizations, they ignore those, so the Vexarii made a plan. They would go into deep stasis, hiding in places the silence couldn't detect, and humans would be sent to Earth, a perfect garden world with all their memories erased. You would start over from scratch. The plan was for both species to sleep through the cycle. When the silence moved on, maybe in 1,000,000 years, maybe more, automated systems would wake everyone up. The Vexarii would emerge from stasis. Humans would be contacted and told the truth. The first accord would rise again. And humans on Earth evolved naturally, built your own civilizations, and eventually reached space on your own. But as newcomers, primitives in a galaxy that had forgotten you ever existed here before." The holographic displays faded, leaving just Remembrance standing before Marcus. Her expression was sad. "This ship is one of 12 archive vessels," she said. "We were hidden in different sectors of the galaxy, waiting for humans to spread out into space and eventually find us. I've been dormant for 200 years, ever since the Vexarii disappeared. My systems have been failing, but I kept the basic functions running, waiting for a human genetic signature to activate me. What happens then? You'll be the last human to ever know the truth about your species." "There has to be another way," Marcus said. "Can't we transfer the data to another system, download it to a standard storage device? It's not just information. It's stored in living crystal that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Transferring it requires technology that doesn't exist anymore. Or 3 planets orbited a blue sun, and one of them was marked with symbols he could read. Primary sanctuary. The sanctuary has systems that can interface with this core. We could preserve everything. But accessing them requires a genetic key, a specific DNA sequence found only in the original human spacefarers. Your blood worked to activate me, Marcus. It should work to unlock the navigation data. It's been sitting here for 200 years. Red lights flashed along the walls. Marcus's personal communicator buzzed frantically in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a message from Kepler Station's traffic control. Urgent. All vessels prepare for inspection. Qualthene Inquisitor ship Righteous Purpose requesting immediate docking clearance. Bay 47 lockdown in effect. Do not attempt to leave. What's a Qualthene Inquisitor? If they find the ship active, any evidence that the Vexari left willingly, that they plan to return, would shatter the foundation of their society. They can't let this ship's existence become public knowledge. Remembrance brought up an external view on the displays. Marcus could see Kepler Station's docking bay from the outside. 3 ships were approaching. 2 were marked with Qualthene symbols, religious icons Marcus recognized from his travels. But the 3rd ship was unmarked. Completely black with no running lights, no identification transponders. It didn't match any design Marcus had ever seen. Who are they? Marcus asked, pointing at the black ship. Remembrance zoomed in on it and Marcus heard something he'd never expected to hear from an AI, a gasp of shock. That's impossible, she whispered. That ship design. It's not from this era. It's not even from the first Accord era. That's a Watcher-class vessel. They haven't existed for 2 million years. And they've sent something to make sure the truth stays buried. Station control can override our release protocols. We're not armed for it. The Vexari called it the Persuader. It's a directed electromagnetic pulse designed to disable ships without destroying them. You'll be hunted wherever you go. At least this way we're running. Marcus felt something strange, like the ship was touching his mind, reading his intentions, becoming part of him. You're bonding with it, Remembrance said, wonder in her voice. The ship's biological systems are accepting you as its captain. This shouldn't be possible. You're not Vexari. You haven't been trained for. Power flowed through systems that had been dormant for centuries. The lights on the bridge grew brighter. The air grew warmer. On the external displays, Marcus saw the Qualthene ships reacting. They increased their speed, racing toward the docking bay. Time to charge, Marcus asked. 28 minutes, Remembrance reported. But Marcus, the docking clamps. You want to black out an entire section of Kepler Station. 30 seconds to full power. What was it waiting for? 10 seconds. A pulse of invisible energy shot from the ship's underbelly, slamming into Kepler Station's docking bay power grid. Lights exploded in a cascade of sparks. Gravity generators failed. Life support stuttered, and the docking clamps released. Engine charge at 60%, Remembrance reported. We can make a short jump, but not to the sanctuary. We'll need to find somewhere to hide while the engines fully charge. Plot a course to the nearest uninhabited system. The Qualthene ships tried to change course, but they were too close to the station. If they fired weapons, they'd hit the station itself. But the Black Watcher ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Not jumping to faster-than-light travel, just disappearing like it had never existed. Did you see that? Marcus asked. They phased out of normal space, Remembrance said, her voice shaking. That's not technology, that's something else. Something beyond what even the first Accord understood. Jump in 10 seconds, Remembrance said. Marcus took one last look at Kepler Station, growing smaller behind them. He'd spent 3 months there, miserable and broke. Now he was leaving in a ship that rewrote history, carrying secrets that could change the galaxy. 9, 8, 7. The universe turned inside out for a fraction of a second. Then they were elsewhere in the empty darkness between stars, safe for now. How long until we can jump again? Marcus asked. 6 hours for a full charge. Then we can reach the sanctuary system. 6 hours to prepare. 6 hours before he'd see the place where his ancestors slept. Remembrance, he said. You said there were 12 archive ships. Where are the others? I lost contact with them 200 years ago when the SATA-III disappeared. They could still be out there, waiting. Or they could have been found and destroyed. We're probably the last one left. The last record of humanity's true history. The last proof that humans were more than primitive newcomers to a galaxy that barely tolerated them. Then we'd better make sure we survive, Marcus said. Outside the ship, in the darkness of space, something watched them go. The Black Watcher ship materialized for just a moment, its sensors locked on the SATA-III cruiser. Then it vanished again, returning to whatever dimension it came from. And somewhere in the depths of space, near the galactic core, ancient systems registered the activation of a SATA-III archive ship. The silence noticed. Marcus floated in the captain's chair, staring at the stars streaking past on the display screens. 6 hours had passed since they escaped Kepler Station. The ship's engines hummed steadily, charging for the final jump to the SATA-III sanctuary. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that Black Watcher ship disappearing into nothing. It defied everything he knew about physics and faster-than-light travel. Ships didn't just vanish. They used jump drives, wormholes, quantum tunnels, technologies that bent the rules but still followed them. That ship had broken the rules completely. Marcus, Remembrance's voice cut through his thoughts. We have a problem. Qualthine pursuit ships, Remembrance said. They must have tracked our jump signature. They'll intercept us in 20 minutes. We need at least 95 for a safe jump to the sanctuary. It's too far for anything less. What about weapons? Marcus asked. You said we have point defense lasers. There had to be something. The SATA-III wouldn't build an archive ship without any way to defend itself. What about that persuader weapon we used on the station? He asked. It needs 4 hours to recharge after a full power shot, Remembrance said. We used it 3 hours ago. The biological parts. They connected the crystalline data core to every major system, engines, shields, sensors, everything. The SATA-III designed their ships to work with organic pilots, Remembrance explained. The ship's biological network interfaces directly with the captain's nervous system. It allows for faster reaction times, more intuitive control. Your DNA activated the ship, so the biological system should accept you. But Marcus, this is dangerous. SATA-III captains trained for years to safely interface with their ships. If you connect too deeply, the feedback could damage your mind. You could lose yourself in the ship's consciousness. You said so yourself. Their entire religion depends on the SATA-III staying gone. We're not surrendering. Sit in the captain's chair and place your hands on the neural interface pads. Let the ship in but maintain your sense of self. Remember who you are, Marcus Chen. Don't let the ship's consciousness overwhelm yours. Pain exploded through Marcus's nervous system. It felt like lightning running through his veins, burning and freezing at the same time. He screamed, his back arching, every muscle in his body tensing. Then suddenly the pain stopped, and Marcus wasn't just Marcus anymore. He could feel the ship around him, not like sitting in a vehicle but like it was part of his body. The engines were his heartbeat, steady and strong. The shields were his skin, protecting him from the cold vacuum of space. The sensors were his eyes, seeing in every direction at once. It was overwhelming, beautiful and terrifying. Marcus! Remembrance's voice sounded distant, like she was calling from far away. Can you hear me? He could hear the hum of the power cores, the whisper of recycled air through the ventilation systems, the quantum vibrations of the jump drive charging. This is incredible. Can you feel the ship's capabilities, its full potential? And he found something amazing. There's more here, Marcus said. Hidden systems. The SATA-III didn't just build an archive ship, they built something that could fight if it needed to. Not weapons designed to destroy, but something more elegant. The ship could manipulate gravity fields, create spatial distortions, bend light around itself. You're finding the stealth systems, Remembrance said, excitement in her voice. I didn't know they were still functional. The SATA-III could hide entire fleets when they wanted to. The ship responded eagerly, like it had been waiting 200 years for someone to use these capabilities. Space around the cruiser began to shimmer. Light bent, folding around the ship's hull. Gravity waves rippled outward, distorting scanner readings. On the display, Marcus watched the Qualthene ships suddenly change course. They were searching, sweeping the area with every sensor they had, but they couldn't find the cruiser anymore. Remarkable, Remembrance breathed. Your operating systems it took SATA-III captains decades to master. I can feel it, like it's been alone for so long, and now it finally has someone to work with. Some wanted to keep searching. Others thought the cruiser had jumped away. 14 minutes until we can jump, Remembrance said. Can you maintain the stealth field that long? The ship was drawing power from multiple systems to maintain the stealth field, and it was draining fast. I think so, Marcus said, as long as nothing else. Space itself ripped apart like fabric, and something emerged from the wound. The Black Watcher ship, materializing right in the middle of the Qualthene formation. The Qualthene ships immediately opened fire, missiles and laser beams converging on the Watcher. But the weapons passed right through it, like shooting at a ghost. The Watcher ship didn't even slow down. Then it did something that made Marcus's blood run cold. The Watcher broadcast a message on every frequency simultaneously. Marcus heard it through the ship's sensors, translated into English by systems that recognized the ancient language. Inheritor, the voice said. It was mechanical, cold, utterly without emotion. You are waking what should stay sleeping. Turn back or discover why your ancestors chose to forget. Then it released it all at once, a pulse of dark matter that expanded outward in a perfect sphere. When the pulse hit the Qualthene ships, they simply stopped. Engines went dark. Life support failed. Every system shut down simultaneously. The ships became floating coffins, drifting in the void. Marcus felt terror grip his heart. The Watcher had disabled 3 military warships without even trying. What chance did he have? What is that thing? He whispered. A remnant of the silence, Remembrance said, her voice shaking. Your ancestors documented them in the archives. They're not alive, not in any way we understand. They're more like autonomous systems. Guardians left behind to ensure advanced civilizations don't return. The Watchers use technology that predates the First Accord. They exist partially outside normal space-time. Our stealth systems were never designed to hide from them. Its sensors sweeping over the exact spot where the cruiser was hiding. 10 minutes to jump capability, Remembrance whispered. The Watcher stopped. It hung in space, perfectly still, its sensors pointed directly at the cruiser's location. It knew they were there. Marcus held his breath. Through his connection to the ship, he could feel its fear, an emotion he hadn't known machines could experience. The ship had encountered Watchers before in its long history. It had seen what they could do. Marcus, Remembrance said urgently. It's charging weapons, some kind of dimensional disruptor. If it fires, it won't just destroy us. It'll erase us from reality entirely. We'll never have existed. And the moment we do, it'll fire. A defense system so old that even Remembrance didn't know it existed. The ship was showing it to him, offering him a choice. There's one option, Marcus said slowly. The ship has something, a kind of quantum displacement. It can shift us into another dimension temporarily. Phase out of normal space, like the Watcher does. The ship has Watcher technology integrated into its systems. The First Accord must have studied a captured Watcher, reverse-engineered some of its capabilities. They hid this system so deep that even the ship's AI didn't know it was there. He had seconds to decide. "I trust the ship," Marcus said, and he meant it. Through their connection, he could feel the ancient vessel's determination to survive, to complete its mission, to protect the knowledge it carried. 8 minutes to jump," Remembrance said. "We don't need 8 minutes," Marcus replied. He activated the quantum displacement system. The universe turned inside out. Marcus felt himself stretching across dimensions he couldn't name, colors that didn't exist, sounds that were somehow visual. Time moving sideways and backward and in spirals. Then they were back in normal space, but everything was different. The stars were slightly shifted. The Qualthine ships were gone, and the Watcher was still there, but it was frozen like a paused video, unmoving. Unaware. "What did you do?" Remembrance asked, wonder in her voice. "We phased half a second ahead of normal time," Marcus explained, information flowing from the ship to his mind. "We're existing in a slightly different temporal frequency. The Watcher can't detect us because, from its perspective, we haven't arrived yet." Then we snapped back to normal time. Destination, the Vexarii homeworld where his ancestors slept. "Jump on my mark," Marcus said. 3, 2, 1, jump. And the Watcher, realizing its prey had escaped, did something Marcus would never forget. It screamed. Not a sound. Sound couldn't travel in space. But a dimensional ripple, a wave of frustrated rage that spread across light years. Every ship within a dozen systems felt it. Every sensor registered the disturbance. The silence was angry, and it was coming. But Marcus and his ship were gone, racing toward answers and truths that had been hidden for 50,000 years, toward a sanctuary where both their peoples waited. Toward home. The jump felt different this time. Marcus remained connected to the ship through the neural interface, and he could feel every twist and turn through faster-than-light space. It was like riding a wave made of starlight, beautiful and terrifying at the same time. When they dropped back into normal space, Marcus gasped. The Vexarii home system was unlike anything he'd ever seen. 3 planets orbited a brilliant blue sun, each one covered in structures that glittered like jewels. But something was wrong. The cities were dark. No ships moved between the planets. No communication signals filled the space. "It's abandoned," Marcus whispered. "Not abandoned," Remembrance corrected. "Hidden." Then the sensors adjusted, looking at quantum frequencies that normal scanners couldn't detect, and the truth revealed itself. There was a 4th planet in the system, or rather, a planet that existed in a fold of space-time. It was there and not there simultaneously, tucked away in a pocket dimension that overlapped with normal space. "The sanctuary," Remembrance said softly. "They really did it. They hid an entire world." Reality bent around them, and suddenly they were passing through the fold, entering the pocket dimension. The sanctuary planet appeared before them, and Marcus felt tears in his eyes. It was beautiful. Oceans of crystal-clear water. Continents covered in preservation domes that glowed with soft light. And in orbit around the planet, hundreds of massive stations, each one a work of art, curved and elegant in the Vexarii style. "Population?" Marcus asked. Remembrance was quiet for a moment, accessing the sanctuary's automated systems. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Stasis pods, 200,000 Vexarii, 50,000 humans, all in perfect preservation. All waiting to wake up. You said there were supposed to be automatic systems." The signal was designed to reach across the galaxy, to wake up all the hidden sanctuary worlds simultaneously. But something is blocking it. Some kind of dampening field centered near the galactic core. They must have detected the First Accord's plan and placed inhibitors throughout the galaxy. The Vexarii and humans went to sleep expecting to wake up in 1,000,000 years. Instead, they've been trapped in stasis for 50 millennia. Each one was enormous, kilometers wide, containing entire city districts frozen in time. But one dome was different, smaller than the others, located at the planet's equator. The symbols on its surface were written in both Vexari script and human languages. Marcus's translator wasn't even needed. He could read them directly. New Mesopotamia, the largest sign said. Human Preservation District. Marcus disconnected from the neural interface, gasping as his consciousness snapped back fully into his own body. His head spun, and he felt dizzy. "Easy," Remembrance said, her holographic form appearing beside him. "Neural disconnection always causes disorientation. Give yourself a moment. The responsibility becomes real too." Marcus walked across the landing platform toward the entrance to New Mesopotamia. The doors opened automatically, recognizing his human DNA. Inside, the dome was dimly lit by emergency lighting that had been running for 50,000 years. The city beyond looked frozen in time, buildings in a style Marcus didn't recognize, vehicles parked in neat rows, parks and plazas waiting for people who never came. But it was the central chamber that took his breath away. Row after row of stasis pods stretched into the distance. Thousands of them, each one containing a human being suspended in perfect preservation. Marcus walked between the rows, looking at the faces behind the transparent covers. Men and women of every ethnicity Earth had ever known. Children too. Whole families, frozen mid-conversation, waiting to wake up and continue lives that had been interrupted 50,000 years ago. Marcus stopped at one pod. A young woman, maybe 25 years old, with dark skin and kind eyes. Her name was displayed on the pod, Dr. Amara Okonkwo, xenobiology specialist. She wore a uniform Marcus didn't recognize, covered in symbols that his translator identified as First Accord rank insignia. "These people were scientists," Marcus said, "explorers. They were supposed to mentor the humans who'd survived on Earth, bring them back into the galactic community." "We could wake a few," Remembrance said carefully, "but waking everyone requires massive amounts of power. The Sanctuary's reactors have been in standby mode for millennia. Bringing them all online at once could cause a cascade failure. Not enough to rebuild a civilization, but enough to help him understand what needed to happen next." "Wait," Marcus said suddenly. "You keep saying we could wake them, but the plan was for them to wake up automatically. Why haven't they deliberately disabled?" He locked down all the wake-up protocols and entered his own stasis pod. Whatever he found, he thought it was important enough to keep everyone sleeping. The controls are in the Sanctuary's main operations center, located in the Vexari district on the other side of the planet. "But Marcus, there's something else you need to know. The central AI here, it's been trying to contact me since we arrived. It has a message. A warning. This message is for whoever finds this sanctuary," Keeper Zathiel's recorded voice said. The translator rendered his words in English, but Marcus could hear the fear underneath. "We made a terrible mistake. The silence is not what we thought. It's not destroyers or conquerors. It's something far worse. The silence doesn't erase civilizations because they're advanced," Zathiel continued. "It harvests them. Every 2 million years, when enough civilizations have reached the right level of development, the silence collects them, absorbs their knowledge, their culture, their very consciousness into something beyond our understanding. Their minds are integrated into the collective. They don't die, they transcend. Or that's what the silence calls it. But from our perspective, it's extinction, the end of everything we are." Civilizations Marcus didn't recognize, being drawn toward the galactic core like water down a drain. Ships, stations, entire planets being deconstructed and absorbed. "We found evidence of 17 previous cycles," Zathiel said. "The silence has been doing this for 34 million years, maybe longer. Each time it waits for the galaxy to fill up with advanced life, then it harvests everything. The cycle begins again." The first Accord built weapons, defenses, reality anchors to keep the silence out. Nothing worked, so we chose to hide, to sleep through this cycle and wake up when it passed. But I discovered something in the final days before I entered stasis. The silence is changing. It's not waiting for the cycle to complete naturally. It's accelerating. Something has made it impatient, or perhaps it's simply evolved. Either way, the harvest is coming early. Better to sleep than to be harvested. The fate of two species rests on your decision. People who'd volunteered to sleep for the good of their species. People who trusted that someone would make the right choice when the time came. How long until the sanctuary's power runs out? Marcus asked. At current consumption rates. Approximately 5,000 years. Right when the first Accord went into hiding. They've been waiting for 50,000 years for everyone to come out of their holes. That black ship, it wasn't trying to destroy us. It was trying to scare us into going back into hiding. Or leave them sleeping and carry this burden alone. A young boy, maybe 12 years old, frozen with a smile on his face. His name was Chen Xiaming. The weight of it was crushing. These weren't just random humans. They were his people, his family, separated by a gulf of time so vast it was almost meaningless. Marcus made his decision. Wake them up, he said. Not everyone, not yet, but enough. 100 people. Split them between humans and Vexari. We need knowledge, skills, perspective. We need people who understand what we're facing. The first Accord tried to survive by hiding. Maybe it's time to try something else. We find the cracks in impossible systems and exploit them. The silence has been running the same cycle for 34 million years. That means it's predictable, and anything predictable can be beaten. Then she smiled, a genuine, hopeful expression. Your ancestors would be proud, she said. Let's hope so, Marcus replied, because we're about to wake them up and find out. 100 stasis pods began the careful process of bringing their occupants back to consciousness. The first person to wake up was Dr. Amara Okonkwo. Marcus stood beside her stasis pod as the preservation field slowly dissolved. Her eyes fluttered open, confused and disoriented. She tried to speak, but her voice came out as a weak croak. Easy, Marcus said gently. You've been asleep for a long time, don't try to move yet. Another human, living proof that the plan had worked. How long? She managed to whisper. Marcus hesitated. How do you tell someone they've been asleep for 50,000 years? That everyone they knew was dust? That Earth had forgotten them completely? 50 millennia, Marcus said softly. The wake-up signal never came, something went wrong. Still hunting. The best minds the first Accord had to offer. Marcus gathered them in the sanctuary's central assembly hall. The humans looked shell-shocked, processing the impossible truth of their situation. The Vexari were more composed, but Marcus could see the tension in their movements, the way their skin patterns flickered with anxiety. He stood before them, feeling completely inadequate. He was a failed cargo hauler who'd bought a ship on a desperate gamble. What right did he have to lead these people? But he was all they had. I know you have questions, Marcus began. I know this is overwhelming. You went asleep expecting to wake up in a million years, in a galaxy where the silence had passed. Instead, you're waking up to find that almost nothing has changed. The silence is still here, still waiting. Why not let us sleep until the cycle truly passes? Eventually, the sanctuary's power will fail, and everyone here will die without ever waking up. By activating that ship, by coming here, you've announced our presence to the silence. The massive structures near the galactic core, the entities that harvested civilizations. The first Accord tried to fight the silence with weapons and technology, Marcus said. It didn't work. They tried to hide. That's not working either. So I'm proposing something different. We give them indigestion. But what happens if the galaxy is suddenly full of civilizations at that level all at once? What if instead of a few advanced species appearing gradually, hundreds emerge simultaneously? It takes millions of years for a species to evolve to that point. And we have 100 of the smartest people from the most advanced civilization that ever existed. Make it impossible for the silence to suppress everyone at once. Or maybe they'd surprise us. Humans did. My people were regressed to primitive tool users 50,000 years ago. 300 years ago, we barely had steam engines. Now we're exploring the galaxy. We adapted faster than anyone expected. You and my ancestors were so busy being the advanced ones that you never considered maybe others could rise to meet you. A SATA-III military commander named Strike Leader Venchar spoke up. Even if we could uplift the galaxy, it would take centuries, millennia. The silence would harvest us long before we finished. He nodded to Remembrance, and she brought up a new display, a map of the galaxy with hundreds of points marked in glowing colors. These are the locations of other First Accord sanctuary worlds, Remembrance explained. 11 more planets like this one, hidden in quantum folds throughout the galaxy. Millions more people in stasis. We could split into teams, visit every major civilization in the galaxy, and share the technology simultaneously. The silence wouldn't know where to strike first. Not political or military, but technological and cultural. We'd be gambling everything on a theory. We can either crawl back into our holes and wait to die, or we can take a risk. Perhaps it is time to try boldness. Okonkwo took charge of the overall strategy. Despite being from 50,000 years in the past, she adapted to the current galactic situation remarkably fast. Marcus found himself relying on her wisdom and experience. "You're doing well," she told him on the third day as they reviewed deployment schedules. "For someone who stumbled into this by accident." "I'm not sure. Doing well describes my decision-making process." The First Accord spent decades analyzing the silence, trying to find a perfect solution. We thought and planned and calculated. And in the end, our perfect solution was to give up and hide. Waited for the right moment. Each sanctuary had its own Remembrance-style AI, and once they were activated, the wake-up protocols engaged smoothly. Within hours, millions of people were beginning their return to consciousness across the galaxy. But the silence noticed. The first attack came at Sanctuary 7, hidden near the galactic rim. A Watcher ship appeared and tried to destroy the planet before its occupants fully woke, but the First Accord hadn't been completely defenseless. Ancient defense satellites sprang to life, holding off the Watcher long enough for the sanctuary to phase back into normal space and evacuate. More attacks followed. The silence was mobilizing, sending Watchers to every sanctuary it could detect. But now there were millions of people working against it, experts in technology the silence had never encountered, using strategies that broke the predictable patterns of previous cycles. And then the uplift began. Teams of humans and Vexari arrived at major galactic civilizations with gifts of knowledge. The Qualthene received quantum computing technology. The Sict got biological enhancement techniques. The Grecians learned advanced energy manipulation. At first, the galaxy's current powers resisted. They feared the returning First Accord, worried about being conquered or controlled. But Marcus had predicted this. Each team made the same offer: take the technology freely, no strings attached. Use it however you want. All we ask is that you share it with your neighbors. Within months, the galaxy was transforming. Species that had been barely spacefaring were building stations that rivaled First Accord designs. Old enemies set aside their conflicts to share the new knowledge. The galaxy was leveling up all at once in a coordinated surge of advancement, and the silence couldn't keep up. For 34 million years, it had harvested civilizations one at a time, carefully and methodically. But now there were thousands of targets, all advancing simultaneously. The Watchers didn't know where to strike. Every time they destroyed one civilization, 10 more reached the harvest threshold. The Silence's algorithm, designed to maintain the cycle, couldn't process this. It had never been programmed for mass simultaneous ascension. 6 months after Marcus woke Dr. Okonkwo, the Silence made its final move. Every Watcher in the galaxy converged on the galactic core. Marcus watched from the sanctuary planet as the sensors detected what was happening. Thousands of black ships gathering around those massive structures Keeper Zathiel had documented. "They're preparing for a full harvest," Dr. Okonkwo said, her voice tense. "Everything at once. They're going to try to collect the entire galaxy in one sweep. But if they're desperate enough, if they release that all at once..." Then Remembrance spoke up. "Marcus, I'm receiving a transmission. It's broadcasting on every frequency in the galaxy. You need to hear this." The uplifted civilizations were speaking. "We stand together," they said. "We refuse to be harvested. We refuse to be erased. Every species, every world, every living being in this galaxy rejects the cycle." Working together, using technology shared by the First Accord, billions of beings across the galaxy activated a network of reality anchors. Not weapons, not defenses, simply devices that said, "This space belongs to us. You are not welcome here." The effect was immediate. The power buildup near the galactic core stuttered, failed. The Silence's harvesting mechanism, which relied on pulling civilizations out of normal space-time, couldn't function against the unified will of an entire galaxy. The Watchers tried to destroy the anchors, but there were too many. Billions of them on every inhabited world, protected by people who now understood what they were fighting for. The Silence hesitated. For the first time in 34 million years, it faced resistance it couldn't overcome, and then it retreated, not destroyed, not defeated, just pushed back. The Watchers withdrew beyond the galactic rim. The massive structures near the core went dark. The Silence returned to wherever it came from to wait and recalculate. The cycle was broken. Marcus stood in the sanctuary's observation dome, watching the stars. Dr. Okonkwo stood beside him, a smile on her face. "We did it," she said quietly. "For now," Marcus replied. "They'll be back, maybe in 1,000,000 years, maybe 10 million, but they'll try again. Not hope that we could hide forever, but hope that we could face our fears and win." But it had happened. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. Dr. Okonkwo smiled. "Now we rebuild. The First Accord, too, built on cooperation instead of fear. Humans and Vexarii working with all the galaxy species, preparing for the day the Silence returns. Building a civilization that can defend itself not with weapons, but with unity. And now we all get to choose what we build with the time we've bought." Let it come, Marcus thought. When it does, we'll be ready, not to hide, not to run, but to answer. And that answer would echo across the stars for millions of years to come. The answer was simple.